World War II had just ended when the United States dispatched a fleet to Antarctica on a mission. However, upon arrival, they found themselves fending off an attack from strange flying objects. Surprisingly, all details of the incident vanished. Immediately after the mission concluded, what exactly did the U.S. military face? And could those entities still be hidden beneath Antarctica's ice? In August 1946, the United States launched Operation Highjump, the largest expedition ever sent to Antarctica. This mission was carried out by the most elite naval forces, equipped with heavy military hardware. The operation was led by Admiral Richard Byrd, officially. The purpose of the expedition was scientific research and military training. But this was merely the public facade of a fabricated story. In reality, Operation Highjump carried several critical secret objectives. One of them was to expand American sovereignty over Antarctica, a fact the U.S.'s government repeatedly denied publicly. Another goal was to hunt down and destroy a secret Nazi base while seizing their new weapons. Intelligence reports indicated a high concentration of unidentified flying objects (UFOs) in the southern polar region. The U.S. suspected these were experimental flights by the Nazis, prompting Byrd's mission to verify this. Let us rewind to December 1938. As Germany prepared for war, the Third Reich invested heavily in searching for ancient artifacts believed to possess supernatural powers. One such expedition involved the ship SS Schwabenland, dispatched on a top-secret mission to Antarctica on December 17, 1938. Crew included not only scientists and engineers, but also members of secret mystical societies and extreme Diet nationalist political groups. They believed in a superior race known as the Aryans, who lived deep within the Earth, with the entrance to their world located in Antarctica. The ship's secret mission was to locate a suitable site for an underground base and establish contact. With this advanced civilization, upon contact, they planned to negotiate access to advanced technologies unknown to mankind. For 3 weeks after arriving in Antarctica, the Germans surveyed hundreds of square kilometers of the icy continent. Approximately 240 kilometers inland from the coast, they discovered a place known as the Polar Oasis. Covering around 780 square kilometers, it was completely free of ice and snow, had warm water, and even supported plant life. The region's boundaries featured geothermal vents that maintained a stable temperature. Despite the harsh external climate, this location was ideal for building a secret base, especially for the operations of the underground craft known as Vril. The Nazis immediately decided to construct Base 211 there. Over the following months, the covert base expanded into a large-scale complex, equivalent to a small city initially. Designed as an offensive outpost, capable of launching missiles and submarines, it quickly transformed into a secure refuge as the war turned against Germany. It is believed that in the final months of the war, vast amounts of equipment, supplies, and personnel were transported to Antarctica simultaneously. Thousands of Nazis escaped prosecution and were secretly relocated to South America, particularly Argentina. Among them was Hans Kammler, head of Hitler's secret weapons program. He and his team of engineers had developed a long-range transport aircraft named the Jumo 390, capable of flying over 6,000 kilometers. However, by April 1945, both Kammler and one of the aircraft had completely vanished, just months later. Thousands of UFO sightings were reported across South America. The U.S. government feared that Kammler and his scientists had fled to Antarctica, continuing their research and weapon production in a deeply buried secret base, though no solid evidence existed. Rumors spread rapidly, and the only way to verify them was to go directly to the pole. On December 15, 1946, Admiral Byrd led a fleet of nearly 5,000 personnel aboard 13 ships, including a modern aircraft carrier with dozens of bombers and fighter planes. Heading straight for Antarctica, they immediately began constructing a base named Little America. Operation Highjump was initially planned to last 6 to 8 months. But just 40 days later, the base was evacuated and all forces withdrew abruptly. It's a massive, costly, and strategically important operation ended suddenly. Especially after the Naval Task Force left Antarctica, rumors began spreading about strange discoveries and serious accidents that forced an early termination. So, what actually happened? Byrd personally returned to the press, but instead of denying anything, he expressed deep concern about the possibility of aerial attacks on U.S. territory. This was unlike the language of someone merely conducting a climate research mission. In fact, he warned that the United States must urgently deploy defensive measures against hostile forces. He emphasized that the country was at risk of being attacked by flying objects moving faster than any known aircraft. Byrd repeated this warning in subsequent statements upon returning to Washington. Byrd was immediately summoned for interrogation. Despite his public statements, after a lengthy investigation, he fell completely silent about Operation Highjump. All related files were immediately classified as top secret, and any soldier who disclosed information would be arrested. The Navy later released a brief report, highlighting achievements while admitting some personnel had died, but without specifying numbers. They claimed all deaths were due to accidents, and that the bodies were buried on site. Notably, Byrd himself had disappeared for 3 hours during a reconnaissance flight. The official conclusion? Radio communication failure and poor weather conditions were cited as reasons for the early end of the mission. That was all that was publicly released, but it left far too many unanswered questions. Particularly suspicious was Byrd's 3-hour disappearance and his apparent loss of time, aware no sod, for someone known for meticulous record-keeping. When he returned to the U.S., all his personal records were confiscated and classified. Top secret, fortunately. Authorities overlooked a secret diary that Byrd passed to his son shortly before his death. If what he wrote in it was true, then everything we currently believe would be completely overturned. According to the diary, Byrd took off early in the morning. With clear skies and all systems functioning normally at 8:15 a.m., flying at over 700 meters, he made his first radio report to the command post, around 9:10 a.m. The Admiral noticed strange colors on the snow. The image wasn't very clear, but it was enough to prompt him to turn around for a closer look. He maintained contact with ground control, but suddenly the instruments began malfunctioning, both. Compasses spun uncontrollably, rendering them useless, so Byrd had to rely on the sun's position for orientation. He could still see the base in the distance. The controls also became sluggish, making Byrd worry that the wings might be icing over. But with no immediate danger signs, the plane continued toward the mountain range ahead. At 9:49 a.m., 29 minutes. After first spotting the mountains, Byrd confirmed they were indeed rocky slopes he had never seen before. After flying over this area, Byrd began descending and noticed below him a green valley with a small river flowing through it. This was impossible in an icy polar landscape. To the left of the aircraft, dense forests grew along the mountain slopes. The navigation instruments continued spinning erratically, and the gyroscope oscillated uncontrollably. Byrd descended further and circled back for a closer inspection. He described the green layer below as moss or short grass. The light seemed distinctly different, and the ground was clearly visible even though the sun had completely disappeared from view. What worried the Admiral most was losing a crucial reference point, but his anxiety quickly vanished by something he could never have imagined below. The green valley, a large creature, was grazing. At first it looked like an elephant, but as he looked closer, it became clear. Byrd descended to 300 meters and used binoculars to confirm the strange creature. Recognizing it as a type of mammoth, he immediately reported back to the control station. The plane then flew over endless green fields nearly half an hour later. Byrd realized he no longer felt cold. The frost on the cockpit windshield had vanished, and ice on the wings had completely disappeared. He removed his gloves, touched the front windshield, and clearly felt warmth. The outside temperature was recorded at 23 degrees Celsius on inexplicable number in the frozen Antarctic. Navigation instruments began working normally again. However, radio signals remained completely cut off. Byrd continued flying for another hour over what looked like grasslands or countryside. On the horizon, a large, brightly lit city suddenly appeared. The plane shook violently. Byrd gripped the controls tightly, but they no longer responded. He felt weightless, as if floating, suddenly from both sides of the aircraft. Strange, disc-shaped objects rapidly approached, emitting light. and making no sound as he tried to turn back. All control attempts failed. The engine stopped. Yet the plane continued flying, seemingly controlled by an invisible force. The objects came so close that Byrd could clearly see markings on them in that critical moment. He recognized the symbols, the swastika, the emblem of Nazi Germany, suddenly. The radio silent for over an hour came back to life, despite heavy static. A voice spoke in English with a German accent. "Welcome, Admiral, to our domain. Your aircraft will land in exactly 7 minutes. Please be assured you are under our protection." Following the announcement, the plane landed gently, without human control. Byrd was greeted by several tall, blond men with unusual appearances. He stepped onto a floating platform that sped across the ground toward the city. There, an elevator took them deep underground. A meeting with a leader awaited him. In a large room with a long table, an elderly man was already seated. Byrd was invited to approach. The man introduced himself and his people as the Aryans, stating they had observed humanity for a long time but had only now decided to intervene. The elder explained that humans were not yet mature enough to control atomic energy and were on the brink of self-destruction. Every time they attempted contact, their spacecraft were attacked or chased by fighter jets. For this reason, Byrd was chosen as a messenger due to his reputation and respected status. After the meeting, the Admiral was escorted back to his plane. A few minutes later, the radio transmitted a voice announcing that control of the aircraft had been returned. When Byrd returned to Chile in March 1947, he was interrogated for many hours. The elder's entire message was delivered to President Harry Truman. He was then ordered to keep absolute silence about the mission, and indeed Admiral Richard Byrd never spoke of it again. His final diary entry was recorded years later when he sensed death approaching. Byrd wrote, "Just as the icy night will end, the brilliant light of truth will rise, and those who belong to darkness will fall." 3 months later, Byrd passed away. His secret diary was discovered and published by his son Richard, fulfilling his father's wishes. 18 months later, the Antarctic Treaty was signed, banning anyone from coming to Antarctica without permission from one of the 12 signatory governments. Even with special clearance, visitors are restricted to very small areas. After all, was there truly a secret Nazi base? Could a civilization exist beneath the earth? According to leaked documents from 1991 concerning Little America, the situation turned abnormal just 2 days after arriving at the pole. Intense lights appeared on the horizon, making sailors think another ship was approaching, but the location was far beyond the Antarctic Circle deep, within uncharted territory. The lights then shot into the sky at a 45-degree angle, moving at radar-invisible speeds. 3 hours later, 5 gray dots appeared in the sky. Heading straight for the fleet, anti-aircraft guns opened fire but had no effect. A radio operator aboard the USS Burton reported that the strange objects suddenly emerged from the ocean floor. Others confirmed that these unidentified objects shot from underwater into the sky at incredible speeds. One flew past the mast of a ship, causing severe antenna vibrations due to intense energy disturbances. Fighter jets from the USS Henderson took off, but a strange energy beam struck them, causing them to explode midair. About 16 kilometers away, the destroyer USS Mobjack caught fire and sank. The recorded report stated this was only the first attack in a series of events lasting several weeks. On February 26th, the final confrontation with the unidentified objects occurred. The naval fleet was ordered to retreat, leaving the area over 6 months earlier than planned. While the exact nature of these objects remains unknown, some military personnel suspected they might be Nazi weapons operating from a secret base beneath Antarctica. But a more intriguing issue is that in the official report, Byrd lost contact for 3 full hours, leading many to suspect extraterrestrial involvement. Particularly, the flying objects described by American sailors in 1947 behaved almost identically to modern UFOs. If we cannot enter their world, perhaps these visitors are trying to reach out to humanity, delivering a warning as they once did to Byrd. Instead of trying to destroy these mysterious machines, should we instead listen to the message they carry? No one knows the answer, and perhaps the fate of all humanity hangs in the balance. This story certainly contains all the classic elements: flying saucers, Nazi bases, government cover-ups, and even the hollow earth theory. But we must recognize that many details have been fabricated or exaggerated. First, Byrd's mysterious flight was recorded during a mission in the Arctic. It's not Antarctica. Moreover, it's unclear why many dialogues between Byrd and the Elder appear to be copied directly from the 1937 film Lost Horizon, in which the protagonist converses with the Dalai Lama and receives a similar message. A book titled The Hollow Earth by Raymond Bernard, a pseudonym, mentioned Admiral Byrd extensively. The problem? When Byrd's secret diary surfaced, the foreword was written by Walter Segmeister, known for publishing numerous works on the hollow earth theory and mysterious underground civilizations under the same pseudonym, Raymond Bernard. The clearest sign that Byrd's diary is not authentic is its excessive use of exclamation marks. Reading other actual records by the Admiral, one finds that even in emotional moments, he wrote calmly and objectively, never with such dramatic flair. What about the Nazis? The German expedition did go to Antarctica in 1938, but their goal was to find a whaling port to supply oil for the Reich. If their mission was related to food production, that makes sense. War had not yet begun. Hitler, preparing for conflict, sought to secure domestic supply chains for oil and lubricants, especially in case of blockade. The German expedition did claim territorial sovereignty in Antarctica, and many believe they discovered or even built a secret base. However, to this day, no clear evidence proves such a base ever existed. Interestingly, Nazi artifacts have been found in the Arctic, which might explain why the story persists. As for why the U.S. government might hide the true purpose of Operation Highjump, Byrd never publicly revealed much beyond a few vague comments published in the Chilean newspaper El Mercurio. Of course, the article was in Spanish when translated back into English. His words became highly ambiguous. The story was distorted to enhance its mystery and reality. Byrd never claimed that aircraft flew from pole to pole at incredible speeds. He only warned that the U.S. could be attacked by aircraft coming from the poles and needed to prepare. Operation Highjump included a press corps of about 12 journalists. With little notable activity in the field, just endless snow and ice, they may have embellished the story with sensational details. For example, Byrd did report discovering a small lake with unusually warm water and algae growth. But this was exaggerated into a lush green oasis in an endless ice desert. Many also blamed the Soviet Union for the story's spread. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, millions of classified documents were declassified, including a 1947 record describing Operation Highjump. Soviet intelligence believed the mission aimed to locate and destroy remaining Nazi bases. They may have mistaken large weapons stockpiles for unidentified flying objects. So, do mysterious visitors truly exist, guarding something beneath the ice? Or is it all disinformation deliberately leaked by Soviet intelligence? Perhaps the only way to uncover the full truth is to go directly to Antarctica? But to this day, the answer remains unknown, and for reasons no one can explain.